Good morning, welcome to another very early video. It's still pitch black outside and you kind of get used to that in the idea of being useful in salvation, I suppose. But I do have a very, very vague memory of being able to put this avatar into bed at a certain hour, and then it wakes up at a certain hour after a good night's sleep. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, not for many, many years. I don't even really know what that means anymore, a good night's sleep. You have these moments. I used to call them penny drop moments, like they used to be profound. When I first started doing the Course in Miracles, the first couple of years, you would have these like, aha, little breakthroughs with understanding things. And now there have been so many of those moments that they're no longer profound. They're just like, ah, of course, yes, I see, right. And they're no longer so penny drop, more like pin drop. You can sort of perceive them. You hear them psychologically. It's like, oh, I've had another little shift. And I had one a few days ago, it wasn't a shift, it was just a recognition of something Jesus says in the Course in Miracles, which I realized was now true for me, where Jesus says, and could probably, actually I don't have, I've got the text there, but anyway, but he says, eventually you will see, you won't see the body at all, you'll just kind of see the shadow circling around the good. And I had a moment of that in connection to, and I guess it's been that way for quite some time, but the conscious recognition that that's how it has been hadn't really dawned on me. There was just this kind of floating along sort of association with the way things now were that I hadn't really stopped to consider in any context until the other day. I was looking at a post by someone offering soul journey counseling or something that people offer, and all these sorts of things. But the photograph was of a woman, a very attractive woman, middle-aged and Asian-oriented, which in my contract, I guess, would have matched in with the kind of partner that I would have at one time looked for as a physical representation of something. I was always very drawn to the Asian sort of thing, and I couldn't say for why. I mean, there are attractive imagery, let's say, of the vessel to the mind that is form associated in every culture, but for some particular idea that attracted me, I guess because I was married to a Filipino association for quite some time. But I'd never really stopped to think about it up until this particular post, and I realized that the image of this person would have been at one time somebody I was attracted to. And it made me sort of plumb the depths of that type of thinking and give it a real good old pointy brain look, to such an extent that I wrote a comment on her post telling her I thanked her for showing up in my dream. I thanked my association of my old ideas for showing up in the dream as a way of inclusion, for playing that part for me. And it was quite profound. And I realized in the gratitude that I had, in the gratitude that I felt for my brother utilizing that particular appearance, that I was indeed now only seeing a shadow circling around the good. And that's how it popped out to me in my mind as a course reference. And there the penny dropped, or the pin dropped. It was just a little one. And I was trying to explain, last night I picked up my daughter and my ex-wife Rosanna from the airport, and we were talking about friends, the idea of friends. And Rosanna was explaining to me about these friends and those friends and groups of friends, and how the idea of all these friends was a constant draw on her personal time, and that's the general perception of it I got anyway, but along those lines, you know. And she asked me whether I felt the same way, and I had to say, well, I don't have any friends, because I don't have any enemies. One implies the other. And in my mind, in the psychology of my awareness of things, looking at things as honestly as I can and pragmatically as I can, I couldn't find an idea of friends there, only associations of my own transforming sense of self. And that was another little pin drop. It's like, oh. And Jesus says in the Course, there are no friends in salvation, because there is no one separate from me. There's not somebody else that would be a friend to me, because there's not someone else that would be an enemy to me. And for a moment, psychologically, there is this ability to witness to, or to locate yourself in the transformative process with a reference point of salvation, and which is very well presented in the last chapter of the Course, the Saviour's vision, or the healed vision. I can't quite remember what it's called now. And I often have people dropping by and popping in, maybe not as often as those of you with friends, but if I look at things singularly, are there any others of you with friends? I sometimes think that, and have experienced, I suppose, the singular nature of life, but I sometimes think that when I'm not looking, it's not there, which is in one sense is true, correct, and accurate, and in another sense is kind of pedantic, I suppose, because what does it matter? You accept things at face value. You accept things at the lowest point of common denominator, which is where I still find myself with energy or light invested in denial, invested in the dream, with lessons to learn, and that's to me anyway has proven to be the most helpful place to sit, the most helpful place to operate from, because to be operating from less than the lowest place in my own association, conscious association within that point of awareness with myself, things tend to get overlooked, and it becomes very easy to kid yourself that you're about something that you're not actually about. There's an element of transcendence about it where the work to be done is kind of still deeper to go, if you can understand that. And I had somebody, Deb, in our Zoom group. Deb and Carl were here recently and bought me this lovely whiteboard, which I have made a few videos using now, and it's very, very helpful for those who have a more visual orientation to their to the way they integrate things, those that have a more artistic brain. And one of the results of participating, and I want to talk about Deb specifically here, I know she won't mind because she's a very, very open-minded association, but one of the things specifically that happens to everybody at some point in a relative way is there's a point where you realize the efficacy of the teachings. There's a point where you realize that forgiveness works, that you do see the results of applying this honestly in your life as an idea of not only feeling better through releasing the entrenched emotional states or in packages of the state of denial, but you witness to the efficacy of that also through physical healing sometimes, such as in my own case where I was healed instantaneously from cancer through making a resolute decision that I had no need for it anymore. And that was after quite an extended period of mind training, I guess, to prepare the foundations for being able to maintain and utilize the concepts that brought that moment into being under the auspices of salvation, I suppose. But being entirely miraculous, I suppose, at my peril. Like, you can't really suppose about a miracle. But one of the things that happens is you get so happy about it and you feel so passionate about it that you want to be helpful. And Deb reached out to me recently with a particular situation that she felt she wanted to be more helpful with. And she had all this energy in the heart. And she said, I'm so passionate in my heart about this now. And she'd had a couple of little shifts going on, but still at a certain point, I recognized in my own transformation that I recognize in her, because it's one transformation. People sometimes say to me, how can you say that about somebody else? But they've got their own individual thing, path and journey and all of that stuff. And it's like, well, it's not rocket science. It's one mind going through exactly the same process, but taking the shape and form of a different association, but it's still exactly the same thing. And when you begin to participate and collaborate together, it becomes even easier to identify the hallmarks of change and the hallmarks of opportunity for change in others as they show up, because you recognize the vibration. Some people say, oh, I see your aura. It's more red than green, or it's gold. Or I had somebody tell me the other day, or it wasn't the other day, it was a little while ago actually, that my aura was gold, solid gold. As if that was worth something. That's what I thought anyway. Oh, gold, that must be good. But Deb presented an idea of wanting to be helpful and wanting to put on groups, facilitate groups, or open a space for groups of people to come to begin to participate in doing this little book, the reviews of the first 50 lessons of A Course in Miracles, which is profoundly helpful. If you're a student of A Course, you've got the reviews of the first 50 in the workbook there anyway. After the 50th lesson, you enter into the first review period in the workbook, and that's the review of the first 50 lessons, which as a tool, as something you can use to reiterate and review the entire thought system of the course in a 50 brief review nutshell, it's incredibly helpful, incredibly useful, and it brings your mind straight back to a full encompassment of what it is you've been through in those first 50 lessons as that full philosophy, or that full expose of the curriculum. And it's a tool, it's a thing that I do very, very often in our Zoom meetings, and either in whole or in part, usually in part because we run out of time. People in other time zones tend to become a bit yawny and a bit, because it's very early morning here and very late at night over there. But and Deb asked me, which is incredibly excellent, right? Her guidance was to ask first. Not that she needed to. I mean, most people up and do things off their own bat, but when you get to a certain point and you realize that an elder brother is helpful in more ways than just being someone who represents something already accomplished, they can also begin to assist in your own maturation process, let's say. Actually reaching out and asking is something that shows a great level of maturity. However, my response to her was not to do that, because I would rather all that energy that she was expressing to me that she had for wanting to be helpful be used as a fulcrum point, let's say, a fulcrum point or a tipping point for a greater transformation in her own process, personal process. And it could look like that either way, but in the interests of saving time, being still and dealing with the energy that is arising, which tends to be farmed out into wanting to be useful, is actually more useful, because that's what the purpose of everything is for anyway. Transformation, the idea of helping others, is only to bring about a greater sense of the singular nature of the whole production, the whole process of salvation. It's like Jesus says in the Course, the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept atonement for himself. So all that energy, and this is something that everyone encounters in their own way, all that energy that comes up, oh, I want to be helpful, I want to do this, I want to, well, first recognize that there's a feeling of it wanting to externalize, which is not good or bad, but the focus and the emphasis of transformational work is to begin the process of stepping back from externalizing the expression of the conscious self, which is what you've done all along, and begin the process of internalizing the converting nature of using one's energy and one's input for that. So you're offering all of that energy to the Holy Spirit. And I remember my teacher, Ted, would sometimes say to us in satsang, or in session, he would say, you know, you guys get so happy that you're clean, or, you know, in a drug reference, that you're clean, or you haven't had alcohol for such a long time, that you want to go out and, what did he call it? You go out and you have a jackpot or something, he used to say. You go out and you get high again. I feel so good, I just want to get high. Which is a way of saying that I'm feeling so good now, I want to do something with this energy. And there's a whole world of people out there using the energy they're feeling in their spiritual practices to try to master the art of manifesting, which to me is absolutely preposterous. It's a great word, preposterous. Well, I mean, you know, people will do with things whatever they want to do with things, and it's like my mind, I look at that and I'll do with it whatever I want to do with it. But when I sit with the idea even of manifesting, it's like, well, I've been manifesting all along. I came to spiritual work because I was tired of what I was manifesting. But let me see if I can use my spiritual work to manifest better, which implies the idea of worse. And I'm right back where I began. It's a very, very slippery slope once you start to use the energy that you're feeling for doing anything out there in the world with it. It is far better if I keep my finger on my nose, use the joy and the happiness I'm feeling at the release through my forgiveness to further perpetuate a deeper dive into the rabbit hole and get to the bottom, or my perception of the bottom of my association in the world, conscious association in the world, and sit there. And that's all. Simply sit there, just be. Sit in that place. It's like when you discover, I mean, this is a journey into fear. It's a journey into the dark, a journey into denial, to expose it, to rip off the Band-Aid of time and space, and to stop adjusting to one's pain, and to allow that pain to come up for healing at last, rather than being suppressed or denied. And there's a beautiful, my truck outside is covered in sign writing. There was a beautiful quote I found by Sigmund Freud, who Jesus talks about actually briefly in the text to Helen, because I know Helen had Sigmund Freud as a common reference that Jesus could use, that she would understand in the process of channeling through her and communicating with her to become a better channel and a better student. And the quote goes something along the lines of, unexpressed emotions never die. They simply re-emerge later on in uglier ways. And the activity of human mind in denial is that it likes to deny things. That's why it's called denial. If you're walking the planet with one of these avatars and you have not yet had the memory of God return to you, you are technically and officially walking the planet in denial, no matter how much spiritual work you think you're doing. And in a sense of accepting responsibility, there is a point of maturity where you accept that. It's like, oh, I am the liar. I am the thing in denial. I find myself seemingly, it's not true, remember, it's just an illusion, a dream, but I find myself seemingly with the avatar, seemingly in the experience of transforming. Therefore, I am the thing transforming. I am transforming my denial. My denial is not separate from me. It's a state of mind. And so there becomes much joy then actually in realizing, oh, I'm the idiot. I'm the idiot who had this idea to be separate from God. You begin to laugh at yourself about it. You've realized how ridiculous it is, and how you've bound yourself up in it, and how it all seems very real, etc. Jesus has to come in and rap you on the top of the head with his pointy fingers and so, hello. And you go, oh, there you are, Jesus. I was wondering what the hell the point of my life is. We had a oh, actually I won't talk about that. That kind of gets off the track. I just wanted to sort of more encapsulate, I think, that idea, especially with reference to Deb. Deb's quite a profound, in my mind, quite a profound association of the transforming kind, and will be very, very useful to the atonement. But the process, and I remember asking at a certain point where I had realized, or I didn't even have to realize, it was told to me from a great voice from the sky to go to Byron Bay and remain at a place where the transformative process was not only being taught, but where teachers of that process were being educated at the same time. And at a certain point I was told I would be a teacher of teachers. And I don't have a formal classroom, a physical address at the moment. I'm in the house here, I guess, but where I facilitate that, particularly other than on the Zoom meeting. But for somebody to recognize they're in a process and to ask for guidance, or and to accept the guidance that comes, shows to me a profound maturity. And Deb showed that, which makes me realize that there is an element in that mind, in that association, that understands the importance of establishing a good foundation. And I remember when I was at the Healing Centre all those years ago, asking within myself in prayer, how long am I going to have to be here? Because the process of transformation was not pleasant. To say the least, it was not pleasant, looking in one's own mirror to the depth that I have, which I am guessing at because of the happiness that I now have, and the unflinching happiness that I now have, which is the result of deep diving into the spiritual work. I was shown a grid, a graph, a bar graph hovering in the air, and I've had a couple of these over the years have shown up pictorially. And the bar graph had a period of 26 years shown in 3 or 4, I can't quite remember now. There was 3 or 4 different coloured bars. One of them was 6 years, which was the period of learning that I was entered into with my teacher Ted. And I stayed with him for 6 years, a period of 6 years, not by conscious choice. It just turned out that way. At the end of that 6-year period, the Healing Centre closed and Ted went back to America. And it's like, go figure. And then there was two other bars, totaling all in all 26 years, as a period of my, and this is the 27th year of that occurrence that I find myself in this year. But the other 2 bars, I had no understanding of what they were. One of them actually, very loosely, was an assignment, I guess, after the experience with the golden orb, which you'll find the video about that in my playlist entitled Experiences in my YouTube channel. And the other one, not particularly sure. Maybe that was attributable to the period of my marriage, which lasted 15 years, 16 years. Don't really know. But all up, that bar graph was a period of purification, which now in this 27th year does seem to have culminated in don't even know how to talk about it. In the state of mind that I find myself experiencing and enjoying as an acceptance of the offering of Jesus himself when he said, I've come that you may have life and have it more fully. I feel like now that I have it more fully, that my idea of life, even in the dreaming, even in the illusion, within the mire of the experience, I still seem to find myself useful with one of these things with. It's profound. It's unspeakably profound. I try to speak about it, I guess, sometimes, but there aren't really words. Everything is just God. Everything is the one thing, inclusive of the avatar that seems to be experiencing it. It's a singular. I have a singular sense of myself, which is abiding and which also does not inhibit me from making videos like this that declare that and express it out into the residue of my dreaming as a signal, as a vibration. These videos, it's not about the words I'm talking about. It's about the certainty that the words emanate from as an idea of mind awakening and being a vessel for the utility of that awakening, I guess, in an unlimited sense. If you're a fan of The Matrix, there's a beautiful line in there where Morpheus, I think it is, they're watching Neo on the screen, all the green stuff that's coming down, and Neo's in the Matrix and Morpheus is outside of it, and the three agents, Smith, and Smith, are shooting at Neo, and he just puts his hand up like that. And all the bullets that are flying towards him, they all stop and fall out of the air, and Morpheus says he's starting to believe. To believe he's the one. I've had many of those moments in the last 26, 27 years where Jesus says in the Course, you will see miracles through your hands, through me. And I've absolutely, definitely 100% seen that. And I've had those moments where I've been starting to believe, but now my state of mind now is beyond belief. I don't even believe it. What you're feeling now, watching this video and tuning in, becoming singular-minded in your own association with the words and the signature of the words, the energy of the words that are contained in what I'm telling you, is part of your own transforming experience. Everything is. And that's where you have to include it in. Everything is part of keeping my finger on my nose. Everything is part of the individual transformative process. There's nothing outside of it, nothing separate from it. It's altruistic. And there's a point, there's a threshold that you cross where you realize the nature of the being who stands before you. There's, in the Bible, in the New Testament, I can't remember clearly, but there's a point where Jesus asks somebody, it might be one of his disciples, who is it that you say that I am? I'm here before you, yet you do not see me. Clearly in his mind, he knows who he is. just as in my mind I know who I am. I don't have the ministry of Jesus, or indeed would not want that, but or would not seek for that or ask for that or anything. My own ministry is enough. I can guarantee it. As an idea of keeping my finger on my nose. But everybody must come to learn that there is a better way, and must undergo the same exact rites of passage, the same exact process of transformation, although the particulars will look differently in form. The action of mind, or the mind that is undergoing the action or going through the action of transformation, is exactly the same for everyone. And I've seen that in Tyna many times. Tyna's a very bright association who is very, very helpful to me in many ways, not just through transformation, but also in navigating the auspices of, or the particulars of the dream world through technology and stuff, and all sorts of different things. Deb, also somebody much like that. I remember my teacher, Ted, saying if I could just get a couple of guys that know how to do stuff, with reference to being able to sort of produce material and get it out and help others come into contact with it, put it out there in places where it can be found and received, and ideas are increased by sharing. And it's much like also in the Matrix, where when they awaken Neo from the dream and bring him into the fold of awakened minds, that each of the ones that Neo meets have a role to play in their merry little band, like Robin Hood. Merry little band of men, little band of merry men. That was the thing. But in the Matrix, of course, they've all got skills. This one does the computer work. This one teaches weapons. This one does this, and this one does that. Jesus's disciples all had particular aspects to them that were useful to him in his own personal process of atonement, as opportunities for teaching and learning and keeping his finger on his nose as well. There was never a point in his own transformation where he didn't realize that it was all about him and only him. And even up until the crucifixion, where very much misunderstood his final words. Some people, like, I think it's in the King James, and it says, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" on the cross, which is completely inaccurate. Jesus's last words were actually, "It is for this that I have come." Of course, Catholicism doesn't teach from the resurrection. So you have to expect that things in that regard have been much maligned and much misrepresented. But if you read the Aramaic, the direct Aramaic translation, because Jesus didn't speak in English or Latin or Hebrew or Greek or Persian, whatever, he spoke in Aramaic. And through all those transformative processes of reinterpreting the words, and through the corruption of mankind that has attempted to twist the narrative of the story of Jesus to represent a worldly kingdom or religion, the original message has been lost in many of its dimensions. And when Jesus says, "It is for this that I have come," he says that because he has a profound understanding all things are the will of God. There is no doubt in his mind. He never at any stage said, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" Even in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he undergoes a moment of doubt and fear, it's revealed to him the nature of his ministry is to be crucified and to rise from the dead 3 days later. even then, there is the acceptance that if it is God's will, so be it. I highly recommend anyone who can find a copy. Rosanna has my copy, but I highly recommend to read the Aramaic version, which is direct translation from Aramaic into English. And my version also came with an accompanying book, the translator's study guide, the translator's reference material, if you like, which gave an even greater in-depth expose of an enormous amount of the Aramaic terms for things that showed the translating process. There are words in Aramaic that we have no words for in our English language. And to try and transform them into something in the English language without understanding the complexities of the Aramaic narrative is foolhardy at the least, and borders on blasphemy. It's a good old school word, blasphemy, in the true sense. This is a journey into fear, not away from it. It's a searching out, a conscious searching out of the blocks to peace, the obstacles to love's awareness within oneself. And whilst there will be much teaching and much learning, if you're watching my videos and finding me useful to you as a tool in that process, then not really the advice, but the perspective that I would present to you is to build a good foundation first before you begin your ministry, before you begin any kind of externalizing of the offering of a willingness or a place to join with others in a formal coming together to study the universal curriculum. Jesus says in the Course, teaching and learning is the nature of all relationships, but initially you have more to learn than to teach. And in the interests of becoming a teacher of God, which means you've gone through the entirety of the workbook, the maximum amount of participation with everything that seems to support that is highly recommended. We recommend this brand of toothpaste. And for very good reason, for a very good reason. The mind that is overly committed to denial has to be transformed to a certain level of maturity in order to be able to stand on its own 2 feet out in the world without getting smashed against the rocks. And that's a reference from the book Illusions by Richard Bach, another book that everybody should read. The world is powerful. The residue of the idea of denial in the world is powerful. Nobody wants to hear this message. 2 in 10,000 will hear it, says Jesus. So build your foundation. Deb, if you are watching this video, I'm very grateful to you for just checking in regarding that. And I hope this video is helpful to you in making greater sense of what we talked about with regards to it. Well, that feels to be about it. I put this rotting flesh back to bed. Food for the worms, dust, compost. Oh, that was the word, compost. I watched a little video that somebody uploaded, Suzanne had uploaded it, of some woman in her 90s talking about her love of feeling singular with things. A very beautiful video, beautiful declaration. Trying to express, and doing a good job of it actually, trying to express her connection with life at her age. And obviously this person's done the work. And she said, I'm one with that tree, and one with that bird or whatever it was, and one with that pile of rubble, and one with that compost. And at 92 years, she laughed at herself inwardly and said, I'm probably much more than one with that compost at my time of life, something like that. And to be able to see yourself as, you know, in a humorous way, as in that light, it's very beautiful. Without being fearful, without having any kind of concern. It's just this abiding acceptance of the way of things. A beautiful foundation has been built. Anyway, I love you guys. And don't forget Zoom on Monday at 7 o'clock now, my time, instead of 8. Everything's an hour earlier to try and present this at a more godly hour for those of you in the United Kingdom. I have no idea what a godly hour is. I mean, it's a godly hour now. It's still pitch black outside. I'm going to put this carcass back in between the sheets, and for whatever purpose that is. Don't forget, down below there's a donation link. We are collecting money for Brother Andre in Africa so he can have these little books printed. We're sending him the PDF, or he already probably has the PDF and everything he needs, and he's sourcing prices, I believe, of getting these books printed. But I think we're trying to raise probably $2,000, which should get us 1,000 books plus shipping. Not plus shipping, including the cost of typesetting and whatever they need to do over there. So also, if you'd like one of those little books, just holler. Get in touch with Tyna or myself. I think our emails should be down below, and we'll send a few out to you. And we always send a few. We always send half a dozen when you ask for one, because invariably you'll read it and you'll begin to connect with the material, and you just will. It's like Deb, you'll just want to start telling other people about it, and in that context, that's fine. Just go ahead. Thoughts are increased by sharing. It's when you get to a certain point of involvement with it that you realize the nature of building a good foundation becomes more important than the other aspects of ministry, which will follow later on. Peace.